This one works. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so we're going to get started here. Just to give a quick recap of the Friday night halachot, we're saying that Friday evening, so Friday, actually before Friday evening, Friday morning, you want to burn the chametz, you want to burn all your chametz and do the bitul. You want to do the nullification over all of the bread in the morning. And at that point, you should probably, if you're not planning to eat any more chametz, put all your chametz to the side, wherever you're going to sell the chametz. Make sure it's in that place, because Rabbi Feigenbaum is selling it relatively early in the day. And therefore, if it's not in that place at the time of the sale, and it's not sold, then you would have to burn it again. Or you'd have to you throw it out, whatever it may be. So you want to make sure that it's in the location that you denoted for the sale. As far as at that point, you can still purge the vessels the rest of the day, and then coming into the night, it depends on how you want your house. If you're allowed to technically eat leavened bread, you can eat pita, wraps, whatever it may be, on Friday night and Saturday morning before 10:54. Okay. So before 10:53, you're allowed to eat bread in the morning. 10:53 in the morning, you're allowed to eat bread. And so if you want to you can do pita or a wrap, whatever it may be, a wheat wrap, of course. So you can say a motzi on that. And there's some opinions that say mezonot, but that really depends on the wrap. If it's a good thick wrap, then it's usually a motzi. And so then you can do that in the night and in the morning. And then you would have to run into the problem after 10:53 when you're doing the third meal in the Suda Shlishit. At that point, you already want to switch over. Ashkenazis can't eat matzah, but you guys would just eat fish and fish, right?
Yeah.
Fish and fish.
All right, we were also told to possibly try to eat the third meal before 10:53.
So I don't know about I know there is an opinion that said that you want to do the two meals close together. Sephardis don't do that. Sephardis, we try to do the third meal after mincha time. So we'll probably be doing it at like 2:30, something like that, as early as possible. But yeah, I think for Ashkenazis, they like to try getting it close, one to next to the other.
The third meal is like really small, though. Like
Yeah, it's supposed to be really small. Because you guys, the Ashkenazis can't really eat any bread, any matzah, any nothing. So it's only a little bit of fish. That's basically all, right? And so what the Ashkenazi minhag, I think from what I heard from Rabbi Feigenbaum, is that you start the meal, you kind of get all the bread part out of it, you do Birkat Hamazon, you go like take a walk, you read a book, a couple 10, 20 minutes, whatever it may be, come back, eat the Suda Shlishit, really small fish, whatever it may be, and then prepare. Well, you can't really prepare, but it's good to take a nap, but don't say that the nap is for the night, okay? So just say you're taking a nap because it's Shabbos, okay? It's a Shabbos nap. Okay. Any other questions? Are we good? Okay. Moving on. So usually we have a minhag to refrain from working the day before Passover, the Erev Pesach. We usually, the 14th of Nisan, we don't work. This year, the 14th of Pesach is Shabbat, so I hope you guys aren't working. But that being said, on the 13th there is no restriction. Therefore, you can technically do whatever you need to do the whole day on Friday. Whatever you're not allowed to do, you can't really instruct a non-Jew to do it for you. On Shabbat, Yom Tov, Chol Moed, all of these things would be not allowed. So you can't really tell a non-Jew to turn on a light. Even someone that came out of, let's say someone came from Israel and they only keep one day, you can't tell them also to light a candle for you. All of these are forbidden. And similarly on Chol Moed, we're not going to really touch in halachot of Chol Moed, but one of the halachot is, for example, you're not allowed to do laundry on Chol Moed, at least of like outer clothing. Undergarments we're more lenient, especially if it's hotter outside. But since we're not allowed to do laundry, we can't tell a non-Jew to do it for us either. Haircuts, it's actually very it's sought out after. It's praiseworthy to get your haircut, especially for men before Passover, mainly because once Passover begins, it starts the counting of the Omer, counting of the Sfirat Omer, and at that point, we're gonna have no more haircuts for a good month or so. So 33 days. So no shave Omer. Well, yeah, right. No shave, no Omer. Yeah. So it's good to get your haircuts, shave on the Friday, especially this year. Trimming your fingernails also. It's all of these things are praiseworthy. They're very. It's a good thing to do, especially before Shabbat, before Pesach. If you're cooking any meat, you're not cooking meat, but if you're cooking meat, don't say that this meat is for Pesach. Say it's for the holiday, or say it's a remembrance for the Passover, whatever it may be, because if you're saying that this is for Pesach, it might be construed as you're saying this is the Passover offering, and then that would be a bad thing. But if someone did say this is for Pesach, nonetheless he can still eat it. It's not the end of the world, since nowadays no one really intends to mean that this is the Passover offering. As a Rabbi Feigenbaum mentioned yesterday between Mincha and Mariv, that the fast of the firstborn this year is on a Thursday. It's on the Thursday before, not the Friday. It's on the Thursday before. So if you're a firstborn, you would have to fast on that day, or we'll see that you listen to one of the ending of the tractates. You hear a Siyum Masechet, and then you can complete your fast through that. Are one of you guys a firstborn? Or
No, last question, Rabbi.
Yes.
If we're not sure the firstborn is going to fast,
that's on them. No, it's not if you're not sure, that's on them. You're fine not being the firstborn. So I'm a firstborn. So some people have a custom, even if the firstborn was a female, then she would also fast, but that's not the Sephardi custom. So for a woman, that's you don't have to fast. Don't worry. If someone's even slightly ill, especially this year being it on a Thursday, it's they're very lenient, and therefore you really wouldn't even have to fast on that sense. So if anyone is participating in a mitzvah meal, whether it be a brit milah, circumcision, or a pidyon ben, or a bar mitzvah, or a wedding, whatever it may be, an actual wedding. I don't know who's going to do an actual wedding on Friday, but if they do an actual wedding, in all of these cases, you wouldn't even have to hear a siyum, you wouldn't have to hear a finishing of the tractate. You automatically just can eat once you're there. One thing to take note, though, anyone who's going to the ending of a tractate, is that they have to eat at least a kazait, at least 30 grams of food, whatever it may be. If it's fruit, if it's crackers, whatever it may be, you have to make sure you're eating 30 grams of that. If not, then you haven't really exempted yourself from fasting, and you technically have to, I don't know, you ate, but you have to eat. It's kind of like Kiddush, right? When you hear Kiddush on Friday morning, and you're not, because the Kiddush has to be in a Makom Seudah, you have to also eat at least kazait of mezonot, if you're not going to eat bread there, and if you didn't drink wine. The people, they shouldn't just eat and leave. They have to actually hear the lesson. They have to hear the ending of the actual completion, in order to exempt themselves from fasting. And of course, like we said, also eating a kazait, 30 grams. So make sure that you guys are coming out here. None of you guys are firstborns, but if you are a firstborn,
I'm a firstborn.
wait. So the woman don't only has to apply to men. And so in any of these cases,
Unless I was lied to.
well, Sephardi custom is only men. And so you'd come out to. I know they have a siyums. They have the ending of tractates here throughout the day. So you would come there. Like what we talked about, eating matzah on the 14th is not allowed. So eating matzah on Saturday wouldn't be allowed, at least matzah itself. Again, if you're Ashkenazi, then you can't eat any type of matzah, not matzah ashira, not any of these other types of things. Even cakes made out of matzah meal is not allowed. So all of these things would not be allowed. Sephardis, we're a little bit more lenient. So matzah ashira, meaning matzah that they cooked they made the dough instead of water, they used fruit juices, something that's very sweet, milk, whatever it may be, and boiled or fried matzah. So we're allowed to, but Ashkenazis can't. Basically, fish, right? fish and meat. Fine. So for young kids, if they're 4 or 5, you're allowed to give them matzah, and some people also have the custom of refraining from eating lettuce or eggs on the 14th also, because we're going to be eating that at the night. The egg is the korban chagiga, the zecher korban chagiga, and the lettuce, of course, at least for us, it's the charoset, it's the maror.
And what about Friday night, Robert?
Friday night's allowed. Yeah, all of this is allowed. Matzah, eggs, lettuce, everything's allowed Friday night. It's just it's Saturday. It's just the day of Erev Pesach. This is when all of these things are customarily not eaten. These are customarily. The matzah is not allowed. And like we talked last week, the matzah would also be, any matzah that you're planning to use that night is also muktzah, meaning you can't move it. So if you have frozen matzah, for us it's frozen because ours is a little bit, it's not as hard. Ours is it's soft matzah. So we put it in the freezer. Mr. Shlomo, so come today. And so you wouldn't be able to move that because it's muktzah. How you would move it is you'd have to put a piece of lettuce or something allowed on top of it and then move it like that. But this is only the matzah intended to eat for that night. So if you had matzah intended to eat for young children, whatever it may be, that is allowed to be moved even if it was kosher for the night. So it's specifically the matzah that you're planning to use that night. Okay, that is it for the preparations leading up to Pesach. Do we have any questions, I guess, before I move on? Anything leading up to Pesach, whether it's cleaning, any of the koshering, whether it's any of the halachot with it being Saturday, anything? If not, I'm going to move on into the actual Seder.
One quick question.
Yes.
My brother raised it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Are you allowed to use the kosher vessels, the Passover vessels? We have separate dishes.
So once
before Pesach.
Yeah. So
with kosher for Passover food.
Yeah.
That you can eat before Pesach.
Absolutely. If your house is kosher for Passover and you have no more chametz, like you come into Shabbat saying that's it, I'm not eating chametz, then you can use your Passover plates. That's not an issue. Yeah. And in fact, it's probably better to do that. That way you don't have to. Yeah. That way you're prepped and ready. You don't have to worry about hiding those chametz plates. You don't have to wash chametz plates, even if maybe you were using plastic, whatever it may be. At least everything's already ready. But this is on condition that you don't have any chametz in the house, all right? Because if you have chametz in the house and then you're bringing the plate, and then you just you put yourself in a hole. Okay. If no more questions on the preparation of Pesach, now we're going to get into the Seder. Okay. So the first step in the Seder is Kadesh, is the Kiddush on the cup of the first cup of wine. So we begin. Some people have the custom of first saying all of the Seder, Kadesh or Chatz, Karpas, Yachatz. We're saying the whole thing. Some people have a custom of doing it 3 times. Whatever your custom is, it's good to do. And you see, I think they already have songs for it. They want, and you can choose which tune you want nowadays. Ideally, you want to make sure you're doing the Kiddush after Tzet HaKochavim, after the stars come out. So, I think that's around, what time did Shabbat end? 8:23, so probably 8:30, 8:35, something like that. So you want to make sure that you're doing Kiddush after that. So you're only starting the Seder really, ideally, at 8:35. If someone, I don't know, if some places they had Arvit early and he came home earlier, but it's after sunset, you're allowed to still, you're allowed to still do it. You fulfilled your obligation. The cutoff point though is when we're going to see is the maror. The maror is the karpas. The karpas that has to be after Tzedek Chovim, after the stars come out at 8:35, let's say. If that was eaten earlier, you have not fulfilled your obligation, and you have to go and eat it again. But if someone did the kiddush earlier, around sunset, then he has fulfilled his obligation. Ideally, though, since this year being after Shabbat, and we'll see, we're going to do the Havdalah in the Kiddush. So you want to do that after Shabbat. You don't want to do it before Shabbat ends. So 8:35, I'm guessing that's probably the time that you're going to start the Kiddush. So you want to, it's again, like what we said, it's recommended to make sure that the kids, again, one of the purposes of the Seder is for the kids. And so you want to make sure that the kids are attuned, they're waiting, you want to give them presents. Sometimes you also give the adults present. I heard one of the, I'm going to try it this year, but you give out like Monopoly money on every right answer, and whoever gets the most Monopoly money at the end gets a prize, gets the money maybe.
I love prizes.
Yeah.
I love to win prizes. Oh my goodness.
We'll give them a box of cereal, not kosher for Passover.
Interesting.
So the 4 cups it's an obligation both on the men and the woman. We'll see even a woman can fulfill the obligation on behalf of a man, just like a man does it usually for a woman. Since everyone was redeemed from Egypt, everyone has the obligation. The ideal way is to, not the ideal way. What we have to do is when we're drinking, and we're going to see when we're eating, is that we have to recline, right? That's one of the 4 questions. And so when we recline, you want to make sure you're having a chair that either has side rests, or sometimes, let's say if they don't have side rests, what I found best to do is you tilt your chair, and then you kind of lean like that, and then you can do the drinking that way. That way you're not in midair, kind of like. So.
If you start drinking earlier, then you're already leaning.
Say that again?
If you start drinking
earlier, then you already started leaning.
Without even trying.
And can it be grape juice?
So ideally, you would want. We're going to talk about it in a second, but ideally you would want wine if it's difficult for a person. And especially if he hasn't eaten in a while and he knows if he drinks wine, then it's going to make him a little tipsy. And so he should avoid that. In fact, he should probably drink grape juice. Rav Ovadia, I believe, would make sure to drink, I think, grape juice, the first 1 or 2. I think even Rav David said that he would drink grape juice because, sometimes when you're on an empty stomach and then you drink a little bit of wine, especially strong wine, that can get you very tipsy.
Can you just do grape juice and then add?
Yep.
wine,
Yeah.
And then it's
Absolutely. I sometimes do that. I do a mixture, whatever it may be. The idea is that you kind of want it to have that wine. Yeah.
And the kids should be drinking all wine too?
Yes, definitely.
That's ideally grape juice.
Okay.
Right. But if they can handle it, then definitely give them wine.
I'm a full supporter.
If someone did not eat or drink while laning, he has not fulfilled his obligation, and he would need to go back and eat or drink. The only thing that you wouldn't have to lean for is the kalpas, the maror, the korach. Those things the korach you would have to. Yeah, korach you would have to. Anything the maror and the karpas, any greens, you don't have to lean. You'll see if you want to, you can't lean. Maror specifically, we'll see. But as far as the matzot and the wine, if you did not lean, you have not fulfilled your obligation, and you would have to go back and drink either another cup or eat another 30 grams of matzah. So like we said, we have to lean to the left. And even if a person is left-handed, he has to lean to the left. One of the reasons we say we lean to the left is because the esophagus, I guess, is on the left side. And so when you're leaning to the left, it's going to the esophagus and not to the trachea, which is on the right side. So that way the things go down easier. You don't lean to the right and then it's going to get messed up over there. So even a left-handed person would have to lean to his left. So women are also obligated in leaning. Similarly, a person in his father's presence and a person in his Rebbe's presence. That's of course if they're not makpid, they don't mind him leaning in the presence. If the Rebbe or the father does mind, then you wouldn't be able to. But most parents, most Rebbes don't mind, especially on the Seder night. That's probably one of the highlights of the night is everyone's leaning, everyone's having fun. So like we said, if someone did not drink, if someone didn't drink while reclining, he would have to go back and drink again. This applies to every single cup. And so if even on the last cup someone didn't drink while reclining, you'd have to go back and drink again while reclining. So make sure you don't forget to drink and recline. Ideally, you would want to use red wine. Even if the white wine is superior, you would want to use the red wine. If it's not red, let's say it's pink, that's still fine. That's still considered kind of red. If you want, you can sometimes mix and match and maybe color the wine. That's not a problem. Again, like what we said, grape juice isn't an issue. You can use grape juice. And if someone finds it difficult, it's actually praiseworthy. It's better for them to drink grape juice rather than force themselves to drink wine. But if someone doesn't like grape juice nor wine, he would nevertheless have to force himself to drink. Since this is one of the mitzvot of the night, he has to be forced into drinking wine or grape juice. But the only way he can get out of it is if he would be ill or bedridden by drinking. If he got the doctor's note saying that you can't drink or he's going to die, then he doesn't have to be forced into drinking. But otherwise, you would basically have to drink. There's very small leeway out of drinking the 4 cups. You want to rinse the cup before drinking from it. So you take the cup, rinse it out, and this is between every single cup. Even the first cup, you want to rinse it out. Even though that you never drank from it yet, it's probably clean. You still want to rinse it out. The Gemara in Pesach Halachot brings that one of the things that you should do before making Kiddush, even in a general day, is to wash out the cup. And so you would want to do that. Also, there's Kabbalistic reasons. So washing out the cup even beforehand, and of course between each cup, is ideal.
Is that across the board, like Sephardi and Ashkenazi? I don't remember doing that before.
I'm not sure. I know it's Kabbalistic.
Is it just the main person leading the Seder?
Every person drinking would. It's not. If you didn't do it, then you've not drank an any cup. It's a minhag. It's a good thing to do. That's just it's a good tip. You shouldn't also fill up your own cup. Again, another custom. That means if you filled up your own cup, you don't have to throw it out. You can drink it. It's not an issue. But
Drink another one.
no. Even then, you don't have to. Because it won't. It's a night that we're supposed to be like royalty, and royalty doesn't fill up their own cups. So we let the other person feel like the servant, and then they come back and say, "Hey, you have to fill my cup up now." So don't really know how that works out, but again, for Kabbalistic reasons, we put 3 drops of water into the wine. Everyone does that. So if you have your own Kiddush cup in front of you, you should put 3 drops. It doesn't matter whether it's wine or grape juice. Because of the Kabbalistic reasons, it's good to just put the 3 drops of water into it.
Every cup?
Every cup. All 4 cups. The amount you need to drink to fulfill your obligation is revi'it, which is 81 grams or 3 ounces. That is the minimum for each. I shouldn't say minimum. That's the ideal drinking amount for each cup. If a person has a majority, was there a question? No. It is preferable that the person drink the entire cup full, but if he drank more than half, then he still fulfilled his obligation. And therefore, you want to make sure that you're using a cup that's not so big, because if you're using a big cup, you'd need to drink more than half of that, even if, let's say, more than half would be more than 81 grams, 3 ounces. So usually you get like those small cups, and then you use that. But nonetheless, if someone did, let's say, get a large Kiddush cup, he had no small ones, and he had a large one, and so it held 4 revi'it, so he would just drink the first revi'it, he would be fine because he did the revi'it. Then you can't bless on that again, so you'd have to add a little bit of wine or add a little bit of water to it to make it not pagum, meaning not defected. Because once someone drinks from it, you can't make another bracha on it because it's considered defected. It's considered pagum, disqualified. And so you'd have to add more wine or more water to it, and then you would go again and make another. You'd say another blessing and drink another revi'it, and then you could do that again and again. That's not the ideal manner. The ideal manner would be to use small cups, because each time you want to make sure that it's filled to the brim or close to the brim, that you can say Borei Perei Geffen or whatever it may be, whichever one it is, and then you drink for each of those cups the entire cupful. That's the ideal way to do it. If you drink a majority, if you have a big cup and you drink revi'it, you've still fulfilled the obligation, and as long as you're leaning. Don't forget the leaning. You want to make sure that you're drinking all the revi'it, all the 81 grams, 3 ounces at once, in one kind of gulp, not necessarily gulp, but one kind of, round. And so that's the ideal way to do it. But if not, if someone, as long as he's finished drinking it within Kedei Achilat Pras, which is around 4 minutes, we're going to be stringent and we're going to say 4 minutes, then he has fulfilled his obligation, which generally people can do. 81 grams isn't that much, 3 ounces isn't that much. And so within 4 minutes, that's doable. So when we're doing the kiddush, usually the head of the household, he's the one to do the kiddush, like every Shabbat. Nothing really changes there. He should have in mind to make sure everyone else at the table is fulfilling their obligation, and they should have in mind that what they're hearing is going to be fulfilling their own obligation, and with that they will be able to drink from their own cups. We don't say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, we just answer Amen and we drink. If you say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, though, didn't disqualify you, you're still able to drink, so don't worry. It's just better not to say that, because it would be considered kind of a interruption. The Kiddush this year is going to be a little different. In most years it's just Borei Perei Geffen, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Am, Shechianu, but now that it's also, we said also Havdalah, so we're adding Borei Perei Geffen, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Am, then Borei Mora Esh, Havdalah, and Shechianu. So we're adding the extra 2, and then after we're saying Hamavdil ben Kodesh leKodesh, right? So again, make sure that, and then after that, Shechianu. Shechianu is the last. And when we're saying Shechianu at the end, make sure to also have in mind that it's going to cover the matzot and the maror, because we only say one Shechianu for the whole night. But we wanted also to cover all of the mitzvot of the night. We don't say any after blessing on the wine, even though there's going to be a long period between the first cup and probably the actual main meal. We don't say any after blessing. We just continue on. Women are also again obligated in kiddush, and so they say amen. If Sephardi women don't have say shechianu on the candle lights. So when they're doing the candle lighting, they don't say shechianu. If someone did say shechianu, they would still respond amen to the head of the household, whoever is doing the kiddush. That wouldn't stop her from saying amen. If someone forgot the blessing of shechianu, he has until basically the matzah to say it. Afterwards, he has at the end of the magid, if he didn't remember, he should say it immediately. And if only after he ate the matzah, then he's lost out on the shechianu, because the shechianu, like we said, also covers the matzah and the maror. So after the whole Seder, you remember, shoot, I didn't say shechianu, you've lost out. This is unlike Sukkot, where Sukkot you have basically the whole chag to say the shechianu. Okay, some people have the custom right after the kiddush to eat the hard-boiled egg, and they said that this is a remembrance for the korban chagiga. And then after eating it, you would say a borei nefashot on that. This is especially so for people who fasted on the 14th. Usually when the 14th is a fast day. And so if it's hard for them, korban chagiga, people have it. The my tradition, or how I grew up, was we eat the korban chagiga before the actual main meal. So we do it then. But over here he brings it that after the first cup, that some people have the custom to do the hard-boiled egg at that point. Make sure though, if you eat the whole hard-boiled egg, to say borei nefashot. If you eat half of it, then you don't have to say borei nefashot. But you would have to say sha'akol beforehand also. Okay. After the kadesh, it's urchatz. It's the washing without the bracha though. And so after we do kiddush, we go ahead, we wash our hands, but we wash our hands just like we would do normally for bread, but without a bracha. And then we would go ahead, dip the karpas, and eat it then. But before that, we want to make sure that when we're washing our hands, you wouldn't want to, imagine that it's like a bread meal, so you wouldn't talk, you would kind of be quiet until the actual blessing, until you actually eat. And you want to remain within the same room. You don't want to go outside to a different room, or at least if it's in the same house, you don't want to go outside of the house. You kind of want to make sure you're in the same house so you don't have a change of mind when there's a change of scenery, and so you might forget that your hands are clean, whatever it might be. Unlike normal meals where you kind of want to safeguard your hands to make sure that they don't get dirty. And this one, but after we eat the karpas, you kind of want to have in mind that you don't want to safeguard your hands. You want to make sure that you don't want to explicitly get them dirty, but you don't want to safeguard them to make sure that they're not dirty. Because we're going to later on in the Seder, we're going to do another washing, and then this time is with a blessing. And so if someone safeguarded his hands and made sure that they didn't get dirty throughout the whole magid, and then they would have to go wash their hands. They wouldn't be able to say a bracha because they already did the washing of the hands on the first time. Their hands are already clean, so there's no reason to say a blessing again if their hands are clean. And so because of that, we specifically have in mind kind of to not safeguard our hands, to make sure that these hands can get dirty. Not to actually go ahead and do that, or maybe it might be a good idea to do that, but at least don't stare and watch your hands the whole Seder to make sure nothing touches them. Don't do that. So then we eat the karpas. We dip we eat celery, so we dip the karpas, the celery, in the salt water, and you should say the blessing of borei pri adama. Usually the head of the household, the one who's leading the Seder, he'll say the borei pri adama. And then everyone answers Amen. Again, don't say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. Answers Amen, eats it, and this time you do not have to lean. If you want, you can lean, but you do not have to lean. If you didn't lean, you're fine. You don't have to go back. And you want to make sure you want to eat less than a kazait, less than 30 grams of celery. Because if you eat more than a kazait, then you run into the issue of whether you need to say an after blessing or not. And we hold, Sephardi's hold that you shouldn't, but just to make sure that we don't run into a discrepancy, into a safek, we eat less than 30 grams. If someone is using lemon juice instead of salt water, you want to make sure that at least 50% is, more than 50% is water, because otherwise you don't have any reason to wash your hands, because you only wash your hands when dipping food into one of the 7 liquids, and lemon juice is not one of the 7 liquids. Like what we said earlier, karpas has to be eaten after dusk, after nightfall, after tzeta kochavim, and if one did not eat, if he ate it earlier, he has not fulfilled his obligation, and he would have to eat another piece after dusk. When you say adama, borei pri adama on the karpas, you want to have in mind also that covers the maror, because we're not going to say another blessing of borei pri adama on the maror, on the lettuce. We use lettuce, so you want to have in mind that this borei pri adama also covers the maror. Okay, so even though we eat the karpas, you want to make sure that there's still some karpas on the Seder plate. It says even every time that we eat a little bit, you should always leave some on the Seder plate so that the Seder plate is always full. Yes.
If we do the hadamah on the karpas, and then we come to the maror, and we realize that we forgot to have intention on the maror, should we recite the blessing again anyways, or just... No. As
long as you said the on the karpas, even if someone, let's say, ate more than kazait and he accidentally said borei nefashot, because usually we're going to say that even if you had kazait, you shouldn't say borei nefashot, but let's say someone mistakenly did, he would still not recite a blessing of borei pri adama on the maror.
Okay.
So once we, I think that was, yeah.
It's me.
Yeah. And so then after karpas, we get to the next one, which is yachatz. And yachatz, we are going to break the middle matzah. So ideally, you want 3 matzahs on the plate. You take the middle one and you rip it. Kabbalistically, they say you want to break it so that the bigger one is a vav, like the letter vav, and the smaller one is going to be a dalid. But good luck trying to do that. I've seen many seders that they try really hard to do it, and it never works out because I don't know that whoever did the who wrote this halakha, the Kabbalist, I guess didn't maybe know geometry, that you can't really take a smaller, a big vav and then a smaller dalet. So, of course, it had bigger intentions, it had more deeper intentions. But it's the idea is that you want to say that the bigger one looks like a vav, whatever it may be, and then the smaller one is a dalet. We take the bigger one, we take the vav, and we put it away as the afikomen. That's the highlight of the night for most people. And so we put that away, and we leave the smaller piece, the dalet, between the 2 matzahs. If someone has 2 matzahs, I don't know, he lost the 3rd one, and he's in Siberia. So make sure the bottom one, the second one, would be the one that you break in half and put it away. If someone, because ideally, we're going to see in Motzi Matzah, we're going to be eating the middle matzah. So the middle matzah itself has to be at least 30 grams after you rip it, after you tear it. And by the way, you don't cut it with a knife, right? You cut it with your hand, you break it with your hands. I don't have to tell Ashkenazis that, because I think if they try to cut it with a knife, the knife will break. I don't think. But our matzahs, because they're soft, you might come to think that you can actually cut it. No. Everyone's breaking it with their hands, and because this is the way a poor person eats. They said is with their hands. They actually say it's a segula. Every Rosh Hashanah to buy a new bread knife. It's a segula for parnasa. It's a segula for wealth. On Rosh Hashanah, every Rosh Hashanah to buy a new bread knife. So you're going to see the bread knife stocks are going to go up right now before Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so ideally, after you break the piece in the middle still has to be at least 30 grams. If you can't do that, then you would have to put 2 pieces of matzah in the middle, and you would have to break both of them, so that there's at least 30 grams left after breaking it. Okay, after that we get to the longest section of the Seder, which is Magid. And there's no blessing on the Magid. There's no explicit blessing, and that's because it's there's a lot of different reasons for it. One reason is you can't you don't bless on a mitzvah that you don't know how long it's going to last. And some say that it's the opposite, that because you can technically already say that we've fulfilled it in the Kriyat Shema at night. When we said Shema, we already mentioned the Exodus of Israel. So over there, you already did it. And so some say that the Asher Ge'alanu that we said at the end, that's the blessing. There's a bunch of different reasons. And so there's no explicit bracha on it. So the first part is the halachmania. This is the only section you'll see is actually written in Aramaic, and it's saying that it's kind of like it's if you look at the words, it's kind of sad. It says halachmania. This is the poor man's bread. Really, it's not a poor man's bread. It's poor bread, meaning that it only has certain ingredients. It's not much shira, which has a lot of ingredients. It's only water and wheat, water and flour, and so we lift up the seder plate, and so that everyone can see it, and we say halachmaniya. We say that we basically the whole halachmaniya is saying that we left out of Egypt, and now though usually what would happen is that we would go and bring a Korban Pesach, we would bring the sacrifice to the Temple Mount. But unfortunately, we are back in exile. And one day, B'ezras Hashem, will get out of this exile and we'll go back to Jerusalem and once again be able to do those korbanot. So while holding it aloft, some people have the custom to lift specifically the broken matzah in the middle, and not the rest of the platter. Some people have the custom to lift the whole platter. My custom is to lift the whole platter. And then we say halachmaniya. And then afterwards, we remove the Seder plate entirely, or at least move it to the other side of the table, so that the children are going to ask, what are you doing? You just lifted it and now you're taking it away. I thought we didn't even say any blessings on it and now you're taking it away. What's happening? And this spawns them and goes into the next part of the section, which is the manishtana. But before getting to the 4 questions, manishtana, after halachmaniya, we fill up the glass again for the second glass. We don't drink it, we just fill it up. And then after that, we go into, again, this is also to spark the curiosity. Father, Dad, why are we doing this? Why are you filling it up? You took away the Seder plate, you had it lifted up, and now you're taking it away. Now you're filling this cup up. I thought we already drank wine, we have to drink another cup. And it's all these questions. Basically, getting the kids to ask questions, sometimes to ask the adults questions, and most of the adults also don't know the answer to the questions. And so that's when it gets sad. But Baruch Hashem, there's going to be someone who's leading the Seder. He should at least... or if you want to be a real wise man, ask the guy at the Seder, why are we doing this? Why do we start off in Aramaic? Why don't we start off in Hebrew? All right, and may start ask all these questions, see if he knows the answer. If he doesn't, then they're going to be like, okay, what's the answer? And you're going to be like, I also don't know, that's why I'm asking. So, if you're at someone else's Seder, if you're at my Seder, please don't ask these questions. But if you're at someone else's Seder, please ask. Go ahead, ask, why are we saying this? Well, I don't understand this Aramaic. Why are you saying in Aramaic? Why are you filling it up specifically now? And what's up with these 4 questions, right? Manishtana. So you want to make sure again that we're starting this whole section of the Haggadah after it's dusk. Of course, like what we said, the karpas has to be after dusk, after nightfall. So it follows too that this also has to be after nightfall. If someone has no matzah or maror, he still has the obligation to read the Exodus of Egypt. Women are also obligated as well. And so if a woman doesn't really understand Hebrew, she should at least read the translations or in whichever language she understands. If a woman is unsure whether she recited a certain section, she does not have to go back and recite it. This is unlike a man who, if he misses a section or he's unsure that he missed a section, he should go back and read it. Again, this is all in the language of your understanding. So if you don't understand Hebrew, read it in English. If you don't understand Aramaic, read it in Aramaic. Because of that, no, I'm kidding. But read it in the language that you understand. Usually what happens is the common custom is one person reads it out loud and then other people follow. Or they take turns reading a certain section. The idea is that everyone should have in mind that he's fulfilling them in what they're saying. Shomeach ha'oneh, what they're hearing, what he's saying is as if they're saying it. And so to have that in mind, some people have the custom to kind of lip it with them, to move their lips as to read it alongside the person who's reading it. Again, we want to just make sure that we're reading each section and not skipping. And some people have they get the first couple of things, halachmania, 4 questions, everything is good, and then you get into the part where it's like, it wasn't actually 50 sins at the splitting of the sea, it was 250, it was 200. By that time, when people leave, they get out, they start having sidebar conversations. No, you want to make sure that you're listening to the whole Seder, and you want to make sure you're asking questions to whoever is leading the Seder. Stump them. That's my objective. That's my test for you guys, right? To make sure that you stump the rabbi, stump the leader of the Seder. That's the goal. Because at the end of the day, it's a question and answer format. The night. It's actually, you'll see there's questions, answers, and so you want to provoke conversation.
Question for you.
Yes.
So if you're listening to them reading it, and it's in Hebrew, and you don't understand Hebrew, do you have to still read it in English?
So ideally, yes, because you want to know what is going on.
All right, just making sure.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're kind of just like, okay, they're saying a bunch of words, and you're just like, okay, so what now? And so, the whole purpose of the night is to go over, tell the story, remember the miracles that God did for us. And if you're reading it in a different language, then how would you have fulfilled that obligation? Good question, though. And so you want to make sure that you're at least understanding it, even if they're not reading it in English. Like what we talked about on Shabbat, that you want to make sure that you're telling the story over to someone to the person on their level. So you don't want to you don't want to teach a kindergartner calculus and then a college student algebra addition. Similarly here, you don't want to teach a 5-year-old all the intricate laws of Pesach and all the wonders and all the midrashim of what happened on the Exodus of Egypt. Tell them, that we were in Egypt and we got out, freedom. Paro said no, no, no. And Moshe said, let my people go. And he said, no, no, no. And God brought down plagues, whatever it may be, everyone on their own level. But make sure you're speaking to them on their own level. At that point, in that way, you have fulfilled your obligation. And this is a mitzvah, it's a Torah mitzvah to teach over the story to your son. And this also includes daughters as well. So someone who has daughters, they have an obligation to teach over the story that night as well. If again the 4 questions need to be asked, we kind of just go over the Haggadah kind of rote. We just kind of read it as we go through. We don't really question sometimes, but someone should ask the 4 questions. Even if he's sitting alone, he should still recite Ma Nishtana, the 4 questions. So after Ma Nishtana, we bring back the Seder plate, and then we fulfill one of the reasons why it's called Lechem Oni. Lechem Oni means, like what we said, poor bread, meaning the ingredients are poor. Oni is from the Lashon Ani, poor, but also comes from the Lashon Onim, that you're talking, you're asking, you're discussing. And so it's Lechem Oni, it's bread that has a lot of discussion that takes place over it. And so you bring it back to the table so that there's a lot of discussion. Again, you want to make sure that the Haggadah is meaningful, that it's enjoyable. You don't want to go through this again, and you're reading through the things, and it's like, yeah, everyone's always looking for the Shulchan. They're saying how many pages left, right? And so they're looking, they're trying to figure out how much longer until they can actually eat. But it should be something fun. It should be something that people look forward to. The Zohar says that anyone who has joy and he is excited and he's explaining and the people there are excited and they're having joy from the talking of the Exodus, they will similarly have joy and participate in the joy of the divine presence in the world to come and in the days of the Mashiach. So it's not just a good thing to do. The Zohar says is also probably ideal to do, especially if you want a good world to come, a good times of Mashiach. So make sure you're taking a hold of those mitzvot, doing them happily, doing them joyfully. And you should not try to rush. I know sometimes people want to rush. They're hungry, they're tired, whatever it may be. But like Rav Chaim Palachi said, if you swallow the matzah, you have fulfilled your obligation. But if you swallowed the words of Magid, you have not fulfilled your obligation. Meaning, if you're going through it so fast that you're swallowing your words, you have not fulfilled your obligation. You want to say it slowly. You want to say it meaningfully, pronouncing each word correctly, because sometimes the pronunciations can change the meaning. There's one time where it says v'yireu, but it says, if you say v'yireu is v'yiru et ha'am Moshe avdo, that they feared the Hashem. But if you said v'yiru, that they saw Hashem. So it depends on how you say it. It can have 2 different meanings. So you want to make sure that when you're saying the words, you're also saying them correctly. Otherwise, you could be saying, again, if you're reading it in English, then you're not going to get that mistake. But if you're reading in Hebrew, you want to make sure that you're saying them correctly. So usually we say that, like for example, with b'dikat chametz, that you don't want to talk during the b'dikat chametz. You want to make sure that when you're doing the b'dikat chametz, you're only speaking about things relating to the mitzvah. Similarly here, when the Haggadah, when we're speaking about the Haggadah, the Magid, you shouldn't really be talking about, what are you going to do during Chol HaMoed? Well, how's your business? How's your family? It should be strictly on the Exodus of Egypt. Of course, you should make sure that you're speaking. You don't have to follow the strict. You want to say all the words in the Haggadah, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. So if you want to add more, you can add more. You can ask questions. It should be, again, interactive. It should be something that's fun. No one's really a smoker here, but you shouldn't really smoke cigarettes because technically you're allowed to on Yom Tov, on Pesach, but it's not appropriate to do that at the Pesach table. The matzah should remain uncovered throughout the whole Haggadah. Again, we call it lechem oni, bread that it's spoken about, discussed over, and so you leave it open. There is a part where we say Vehi Sha'amda, the famous Vehi Sha'amda. That's this old song. People like to perform. People like to do karaoke. So whatever it is, at that point though, we do cover the matzot, and we raise the glass. I'm sure whoever is leading the Seder, he will give you the instructions accordingly, because most people don't remember this, especially after the whole Friday, trying to get all of Friday and Saturday, with all the halachot over there, with the laws there correct. They get to the Seder, they're like, okay, wait, we still had more halachot, we still had more laws. So if you don't remember, the person at the Seder will remember, and if he doesn't remember and you remember, you can remind him. So again, we cover the matzot for Veisha Amda, and we raise the glass while we say this song, while this passage, and then we again put the cup down and uncover the matzah for the rest of the Magid. When we get to the 10 plagues, the 10 makot, there's a minhag to pour out, to spill a little bit of wine. Some people put their finger. I don't do that because hands are usually not the cleanest, but we spill.
If you guarded your hands. Yeah.
If you wash, some people wash their hands only with water though. That's the problem. They forget the soap. So
Saltwater, disinfecting.
Yeah, disinfecting. So you want to pour for each. Usually, it's either some people have the custom. The leader only does it. Some people have everyone pours out. It varies. There's no obligation. It's just to spark curiosity. And so for each one, dam, sfardeh, kinim, arov, you pour for each one. And then there's an acronym that they bring, datzach, adash, ba'achav, which is basically the first letters of those 10 tribes, broken up into 3 sections. And we do for each one of those. So datzach, adash, ba'achav. And then there's another 3 terms that the Haggadah brings down. It says dam va'esh v'timrot ashan, blood, fire, and a column of smoke. So that's another 3. In total, there should be 16 pourings, and that's so that should be the amount of pourings done, and then rinse out the cup and refill it. And they usually my father, I don't know where he heard it from, but he said you want to take that cup out and pour it outside of the house. If you have a neighbor that you don't like, go pour it on their lawn. I'm telling you the truth. And if not, go pour it in in the street or whatever, and have in mind someone that you don't like to. And this happened. My dad was in a court case with someone. He was suing someone that stole money from him. 10 years they were in court. That year he had in mind this person, and that year he won the court case. Oh, wow. After 10 years. So it's a tried and tested segula. So have in mind when you're pouring out that wine, whatever it may be, for the person. If you don't hate anyone, if you don't have any conflict with anyone, then good. Then you don't have to. You can say Hamas, right? Yeah, have in mind Hamas, right? Boo. Amalek. Have in mind for them. So that would be my recommendation. And go ahead and ask the leader of the Seder why they break it up into datzach, adash, ba'achav. Why specifically those 3? What's significant about those? He didn't know that the first letters of each of those makot spell that out. So ask him, see what he says. Okay. There is one. The Rabban Gamliel, he says that if you didn't say these 3 things, then you have not fulfilled the obligation. It's Pesach, Matzah, Maror. And for each one of those, we kind of say Pesach zo, Matzah zo. And so you want to make sure that when you're saying, for example, Matzah zo, you can point to the Matzah. When you say Maror zo, you point to the Matzah. But when you say Pesach zo, you don't want to point to the shank bone, because again, like what we said earlier, that if you say that this is the Pesach, then it becomes holy, and you would have to bring it to the temple. Unfortunately, there's no temple, and so you wouldn't be able to. So just when you say Pesach zo, or this is the Korban Pesach, don't point to it. Have in mind that it's talking about an actual Korban Pesach, and this is just a remembrance for that. Okay, we're almost done. Okay, nice. So then afterwards we get lefichach anachnu chayavim. Everyone raises their glass at that point, because this is the ending. We start reciting Hallel, everyone can be seated. Usually we recite Hallel standing, but we say half of the Hallel now seated, and we go on into doing that until the end of the blessing over there, which is Baruch Atah Hashem Gal Yisrael. At that point, everyone reclines to his left, drinks the second cup, and we continue on. So again, we want to make sure everyone is leaning to the left, and he has that he drinks the Ravi'it in one shot, if not one shot, then within Kedei Achilat Pras, which we said is at least 4 minutes. And so even though that's the end of the Magid section, there's no prohibition from continuing talking about the miracles, the Exodus. In fact, it's praiseworthy to go on and continue talking about the Exodus from Egypt with all the wonders, with all and even the miracles that happen in one's life. This is Pesach. People have the misinformation that it's talking about a time that was. Really, Pesach is the first Thanksgiving. It's a night of Thanksgiving. It's a night of saying thanks to Hashem for all of the miracles, all of the times that He's released us from our Mitzrayim, our personal Mitzrayim. And even the Rambam says each person has to see as if himself was taken out of Mitzrayim, like we talked about on Shabbat. That's not necessarily just the physical place, Mitzrayim. I was also talking about the constraints that are put on him, the restrictions. And so, Bezrat Hashem, we won't have to do any of this. Bezrat Hashem will be in Jerusalem, and we can actually go ahead and do a shechita. We can go ahead and sacrifice the korbanot. But if not, these are the halachot. Bezrat Hashem, Rabbi will be coming back tomorrow night. So it's been an honor giving you guys the classes, both here and on Saturdays. And Bezrat Hashem, we'll all meet in Jerusalem soon.